This is the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast with your host, Greg Jameson. Influencer marketing is the process of identifying, researching, engaging, and supporting the people who create high-impact conversations with your customers. On each episode, I talk with industry leaders, business rock stars, and internet celebrities who contribute their knowledge about influencing others and growing your influence. Welcome to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. I'm your host, Greg Jameson. Today, we are going to have a really exciting episode. I have a guest with me today. Her name is Carnellia Ajasin. And Carnellia is someone who has started a company called Mind Catalyst. And with this company, she helps clients, whether they are big clients or small businesses, a lot of startups, around emerging technology. And some of the things we're going to talk about today are really, I think, hopefully going to stimulate you to think about some of the things that you might be able to do with your business. Whether it's validating your idea to determine if your product is viable, or to see how you can apply some emerging technologies to some things that you maybe have not even thought about, whether, kind of regardless of what your product is. Like I said, I think that this is going to be a fun way to kind of stimulate what it is that you could be doing with your business that maybe you haven't thought about. So welcome, Carnellia.
Hello.
Go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit more about you. And just in case you didn't know, this one we are recording on video as well. So if anybody's watching this on video, this is Carnellia over here to my left. And take it away, Carnellia.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. So I run a company called Mind Catalyst, and that's Catalyst with a K. I have to always say that because people think with a C. And so we work primarily in the emerging technology space. So that, what do I mean by emerging technology? So that could mean anything around Internet of Things, augmented reality, virtual reality, well, not necessarily virtual reality, but augmented reality, machine learning, artificial intelligence, mobile application types of products. We also do some dabbling in terms of blockchain. And of course, we do cybersecurity, because every product that we create these days must have that element of cybersecurity as a part of it, so that we can make sure that we're ensuring the data and access to clients' information for our clients, as well as the clients' users that they'll be getting once their product is actually developed. We work primarily with companies large and small. We work with corporations, mainly Fortune 500 companies, nonprofit organizations, hospitals, governmental entities, as well as solo entrepreneurs. We typically have a mix of probably about 30 to 40% small business owners, and the rest would be more of our corporate contracts and corporate companies that we work with. We do have a process. I'm glad you mentioned that in the opening. We typically try to get people to kind of validate the idea first, right? So that's the first step in terms of developing any product that you have or that you're thinking about having before you get into it. What's the point of spending time, money, and energy into developing a product if at the end of the day, you don't have people or users or customers to actually pay for the uses of that? And so you've actually would have spent and wasted a lot of time and money doing so if you had not validated the idea up front. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's a vital part that a lot of people just don't see the point in doing. I have so many people that come to me and they say, no, this is a great idea. Nobody's doing this. And that, we don't need to go through the validation process because I just know it's going to work. And it's like, trying to convince them that that's just not a business savvy way to actually approach anything that you do, you have to have that R&D, you have to have that validation point at the very beginning, so that you are in fact saving yourself time and money, because nobody wants to pay for something that, really hasn't even been validated. Even investors, I'm an angel investor myself, and I certainly would not invest any money into any project or product if I don't see that you've actually had users. So typically also when we create a product for a client, my first advice for them is to bootstrap. So this whole notion around, do I go venture capital funding or do I bootstrap? My advice to most of my clients is to bootstrap first, because you want to make sure that, again, you have the customer acquisition in place, you have the user base in place, you have customers who are willing to pay for your product. Most angel investors, VC investors, partners really don't, it's really hard to get behind a product that hasn't been validated by people who are willing to part their dollars with. So my advice is always to make sure that you have some customer acquisition in place, such that you can have verified users who actually have paid money and is still paying money to utilize your product. You have a better opportunity to get venture capital funding. You have a better opportunity to have partnerships, more customer acquisitions in place when you have those types of things in place up front.
Okay, so let's back up here a little bit. That's all good advice, but I want to back up because I'm thinking that most people that have an online business or an offline business, either one, that the whole idea of doing anything like augmented reality or wearable technology or whatever, that is like totally so far out of their realm that they might be thinking, okay, I get that these things are coming, but how does it really affect me, and what can I do in my business to maybe take advantage of some of these things and kind of jump on the bandwagon before it becomes commonplace? I want to be in the forefront of these things. And, I'm sitting here thinking, I've got a food shop, for example. How does that possibly affect me?
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
I do.
Yeah. So when people, like I said, the process, when people come to us, typically, we listen to their idea. Of course, we sign an NDA with them, making sure that we keep their idea and protect it in terms of non-disclosure agreements. And then we hear their idea, and then we do a little bit of research on that. So we do some research on that idea. Sometimes off the bat, we just have, instead of using, a mobile platform, it might be best to utilize a mobile platform, but add in some blockchain or virtual reality elements to it. So you may know that up front initially. In some cases, we have to kind of do some research about it, kind of see, how far in can we go to start implementing elements of emerging technologies in that. Because that's the thing, right? So to have them that's what they're hiring us, is to come up with a strategy as to what's the best usage, if any, of how we can actually implement or infuse some emerging technologies in that. So, for instance, a client came to us in terms of having a mobile application for car sharing space. And so we did some research and thought about the fact that we can actually have some other elements of Internet of Things as part of this whole process. So in testing that theory or hypothesis, we were able to actually identify that it actually would be a good idea to actually bring that into what they were trying to do. So we have to go through it. So in terms of the answer to your question, it's a matter of really kind of thinking through as to how they want to have the user experience for their users in terms of their product idea. And given their idea, which emerging technologies would make the best sense to bring in those emerging pieces to it, to make it more in terms of fluidity.
Yeah, I think that, if I am sitting here thinking, like I brought up a food company or whatever, and somebody might be like, all these technologies are great, but it really doesn't apply to me. The fact is that most of these emerging technologies, some of them will, quite honestly, some of them will not become mainstream. We've had the truth is we've had artificial intelligence around for literally decades, and it's only
Yes.
been in the last
Yes.
5 years where it's really starting to become commonplace.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But there are things, like augmented reality, I think is applicable to everybody today. There's an app that I've been using where somebody holds up their mobile phone to what is basically a trigger image, and depending upon what that image is, you can make that image start to play a video on your phone and essentially bring it to life. So you could have, a picture of your storefront, and somebody holds up their phone to the storefront, and all of a sudden you walk out the front door of the store and say, "Hey, welcome to our shop. Glad you're here. Why don't you come in," or whatever. So there are definitely things that, regardless of what business you're in, these technologies are going to play at least some of these technologies, and neither you or I or anyone else probably knows exactly which ones are going to really take off, but these technologies are going to impact your business regardless of what business you're in. And I think that, what I kind of want to do here today is explore maybe, and you can just tell some ideas and stories of things that you've already seen, but explore some things of, hey, I've got this small business. Whatever it is, I have a store that sells knitting supplies, and how could this possibly affect me, type thing. So but tell me some stories.
Yeah. So, for instance, I'm actually talking to an association for psychologists at the moment, and we are exploring the idea of using augmented reality as part of therapy for therapist offices, really building a kind of a platform for the for therapist offices to actually use as a download. And so augmented reality to me has the best opportunity in that space because of the fact that when you're dealing with, whether it's abuse or phobias or anything of that nature, it's an emerging space, right? So it kind of isolates the patient in terms of the goggles that it is. It puts them in an environment, in a controlled environment, such that they're not, maybe thrust into, let's say somebody who's afraid of heights, for instance. And so you want to have that, you don't want to trigger them to the extent of, some sort of negative emotional reaction. You want to kind of utilize technology, augmented reality technology, to assist them in getting over their phobia, but in an incremental stages of fear. Which will help in terms of, having an overt trigger for them that can be an adverse effect on their healing. And so we're talking about how we can infuse augmented reality as part of therapy, as it relates to whether they're a military, ex-military or current military soldier, or someone serving in that space, or whether somebody's dealing with, like I said, abuse or some sort of phobia or things like that. So for me, I think there's a wonderful potential for augmented reality in that space in particular. I think that's and also have the ability for people who have psychology practices or psychiatry practices to actually have that as part of their treatment. Okay, yeah. So I think that's a wonderful opportunity there.
Yeah, definitely augmented reality in medical field in general is huge.
Yeah.
As you were talking there, one of the other things I was thinking about that, any small business owner that has an e-commerce shop in particular that could be doing, and I really don't see anybody doing this, at least much in the United States. I think that there's some places in China that are doing it, where you put on virtual reality goggles and you walk through a store and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I want. And you grab it off the shelf and
that too, and pay for it too. You can also pay for it.
Right. And doing that puts it into your shopping cart. And,
yep.
And now instead of the traditional e-commerce shop that we think of where we go through and click on add to cart type stuff. You make this an immersive type of thing that really gives somebody a great experience. And then if they're trying to buy clothes or whatever, that you're in the virtual reality thing, try the clothes on virtually and see how it looks on you and whatnot.
Yeah, try to even at your house, just being able to see, this is the right size, does it look good on me, does this color look good to me, that kind of thing. You can definitely do that with augmented reality. Actually, I think more use for that would be more virtual reality, actually, as opposed to augmented reality.
Right.
And I think virtual reality also for, as you mentioned, stores, shopping in stores, having that ability to do that from your home as opposed to actually having to go to the store to actually do that. And then, like you said, you're actually virtually walking through the store and say, oh, I need toilet paper. I need, I need some potato chips and, kind of doing that, kind of walking through virtually from the comforts of your own home. And then subsequently having that product. So that shopping carts, shipped to your home or delivered to your home. And I think that's something that definitely, I know I've heard some word of that happening at Whole Foods. I think Whole Foods with Amazon taking over, that might be something that they're actually looking into doing. So of course, other outfits will have the opportunity to do the same thing. I don't see that being a problem even in the warehouse space, because I know a few clients of mine who have some product based in Whole Foods, where from their warehouse standpoint, they can actually do that in terms of their warehouse too, to see in terms of inventory, supplying and demand, seeing if that whole supply chain is actually going well. I think virtual reality has a wonderful opportunity to play a part in that as well in terms of supply chain management.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break here, but on the other side of the break, I want to address some things related to privacy and security. And maybe overcoming the fears of implementing some of these technologies, whether people are, I know that like with self-driving cars, that there was the accident in Phoenix or whatever a year ago or whatever, and now, people are freaked out about self-driving cars, and people probably rightfully so are a little bit freaked out about wearable technologies and stuff. Hey, somebody is monitoring my every move by these things, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. And so there's a lot of skepticism around that as well. So let's talk about that on the other side of the break.
Sure, no problem.
Are you a business owner that runs an online shop? I have a free course available for you. It goes over the features that every great product page should have. This course can double or even triple your sales, whether you are selling on a marketplace like Amazon or selling on your own e-commerce website. The examples use WordPress and WooCommerce, but are applicable to any online store. In this course, we're going to discuss buyer personas, buyer persona specific headlines, high quality photos, videos, buyer specific descriptions, specifications, short descriptions, call to actions, and social proof. You can register for this class and get free access at webstoreslimited.com/free class. This free class includes a 15-minute video lesson, a 20-page ebook, and a handy checklist. That link again is webstoresltd.com/free class. Welcome back to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. I have a guest today, as you are aware, Carnellia Ajasin. And Carnellia, right before the break, Carnellia and I were talking about the concerns that people might have as it relates to some of these emerging technologies and whether or not they really even want to get into this because, quite honestly, they might be a little bit freaked out. So Go ahead and address that if you would.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's funny, and I'm going to address it by mentioning the fact that I'm here in Atlanta, the Atlanta area, and they were mentioning a few weeks ago on NPR that the Atlanta airport will be infusing some biometrics as part of their security. And I thought, oh my goodness, what does that mean? So I'm not sure if I want to have an implant just to go to some trips and go through security. But I think at some point, it will get to that, so now, like you said, with security and people kind of monitoring our every move, Big Brother is everywhere. It's just and also too, with companies not really being responsible or held accountable, like the Facebooks and such in the world, just kind of being accountable for what they're doing with our data. And what they're doing with our information about how we live our lives every day. So for me also, as a technologist, it's very disconcerting in that regard as well. We really pride ourselves to be more mindful in terms of how we approach technology and technology development. And so that's why cybersecurity is a really big part of what we do to ensure that we are responsible and also mindful of the data that's being used and how it's being used for our clients. And then also educating our clients who are developing products that, they too now have to be mindful and responsible with how and for what uses the data is going to be used with their clients going forward. Like you said, I mean, it's really, it's kind of that whole chicken before the egg kind of thing situation when you're talking about security and you're talking about technology in general, because we use technology, we love the use of technology, but then we also have to deal with the fact that we have to give up some liberties of our privacy, liberties of our data, our information, in order to do so, to have that convenience and use. So, I am as a person myself, I'm very selective of what information I put out there and online in terms of my children's pictures and things of that nature on certain platforms, because I don't really feel comfortable with that particular company off the bat. I see people just kind of posting that type of information on any platform without really understanding, who's behind that company and things of that nature. And I find that to be really just something that I just would not do, being in this whole space. But, when you're looking at technology in general, when you're looking at whether it's our data or our physical health in terms of phones and, holding phones up to your skin, causing issues around health as it relates to that types of the radiation or usage of phones, those things for me really cause a lot of pause, because I feel that we need to be more mindful as consumers as it relates to technology and what we use and how we use the technology. So it's not just the data that we should be concerned about. Certainly we should be concerned about that, but we should also be concerned about the physical ramifications of using certain technologies without knowing fully how that may impact our health going forward as we start talking about wearables and physical types of technology and as well as Internet of Things, because those things are also going to be, I feel anyway, it could have an adverse effect on us physically. So we need to be mindful of that and kind of be aware of what's happening in that regard.
Yeah, I heard or read about an example recently of a pair of shoes that was basically wearable technology, and the shoes would record like how far you walked in a day and stuff. It's like, you know what? I can get that with my Fitbit. I don't really need a pair of shoes to do that. And besides that, now the shoe manufacturer is recording where I've been, how, all this stuff about me. And do I really need my shoes to give me that kind of data in exchange for what the shoe manufacturer is getting out of that? And the rebuttal was kind of like, yeah, well, then the shoe manufacturer can tell you when your shoes are about to wear out. And I'm like, I can take my shoes off and look at them. And
right.
sure enough,
Exactly.
I need a new pair of shoes.
Exactly. And also,
I don't need an email telling me it's time to buy a new
right.
pair of shoes.
And also, what do we know about the data integrity of that shoe manufacturer? Like, do we really even know, if he's, if he has a manifesto or, a value system around, securing the data of your information. I mean, that is your information, so, for me, that's also very important to know, it's all important. I don't think that, like you said, I don't want someone to know, where I've walked every day of when I wear those shoes. I also want to know, what are you doing with that information other than just tracking it for me and for
Right.
you? Like, what else are you doing with that information? And I need to have full disclosure of that, as a consumer, so I think that's really important.
So, as a consumer and as the business owner here, I think that we're a little bit torn. We want to as we talked about earlier, jump on the bandwagon here, be one of the first to really be able to provide some value and kind of be a leading edge company, or at least a bleeding edge company with some of these things, to be able to provide some real value to our customers. But at the same time, as a consumer, we're like, I'm really hesitant about that.
Yeah.
So how do you go about coming up with ideas, or how does a business come up with ideas of how can I really utilize some of these emerging technologies to make an impact?
Yeah. Well, it's really about going through an ideation session. So typically what we do is we work with, for our corporate clients, we work in terms of teams of, let's say, 3 to 8 per team. And they have a problem they're trying to solve, or they have something they're trying to expand, whether it be a product or whether it be a service that they're trying to expand. And so we go through a process of ideation. So it's kind of where we just kind of throw up, all the opportunities on the wall. We kind of vote on those opportunities to see which opportunities of those makes the most sense. We kind of do it in terms of a group, and we also do it individually. Then once we go through those, people vote on which idea makes the best sense. Then we go through some of the complaints of those ideas, which ideas are not the best. We always start with the positive first, because we want to keep the morale positive in the environment. And then we go through those same opportunities and see which ones are really, really holding us down, not really doing us any service as a company. Because sometimes problems is where the best opportunities come. And so then we vote on those problems to see which problems is the most prevalent. And then we start, we have people vote on those problems. And then we go through the process of, of those problems, trying to turn those problems into solutions, right? Because again, the problems is the meat and the sauce of, really a really high value product, really, because when you're solving a real problem, that product has the ability to have the most impact. So therefore, it's probably on the best, it's the best product to use to go forward with typically. So when we do that, we kind of finesse those problems down to the best problem and solution that fits that problem to be solved. And then that typically then we look at the landscape of what's out there in terms of technologies and see what's the best fit for that technology to be used or to be produced, whether it's going to be on a platform other than a mobile device, or whether it should be a wearable, whether it should infuse some augmented reality or some form of Internet of Things, and then we kind of work from there. So it's a process of ideation, it's a process of voting and analyzing and also problem solving for the best solution. And then we vote on what's best, and we go from there and then shoot that out to kind of do some preliminary testing in terms of a prototype. So we do a very loose prototype on that, and we farm that out to a few people to see. It's in a controlled manner, of course, to see, would this solve this particular problem for you? And so when we get those votes on that, and then we compile those votes, and we evaluate the comments and feedback on that, and then we decide to go. And then from there, we can decide, and we can see very clearly whether to go. We have the green light to go forward with this, or a yellow light to kind of wait and see, kind of get more information and data, or a red light, like this doesn't make any sense. No one's getting it. No one will really be willing to pay money for this. So there's no sense in going forward with this. So there's a process in place.
Okay. Do you have a specific story? And I know you might be under non-disclosure with different people, but a specific story or a success that you can share with us?
I can share it, but I wouldn't be able to well, that's the thing. I wouldn't be able to tell you specifics about what the product does. That's the issue that I have. Yeah. That's the other reason why we have to create our own products in-house so that we're able to kind of share that information, this type of information. So I really can't share specifics about, I wouldn't be able to share specifics about the product itself. So I'm not sure how that would help.
Okay. Well, I do think what you said there is really important, is that most businesses, I would venture to say really all businesses, you really need to have your own product of some kind. It might be just a digital product where, hey, I created an ebook or whatever, but if you look at truly successful companies, starting at the top with like an Amazon doesn't just sell other people's stuff. They have their own products.
Yes.
And I think that's true for any really successful businesses, that, you might be reselling some other people's products.
Or building some other people's products.
Right. Or you may even just be a service-based company. But if you really want to stand out in the world today, you need to have some kind of a product that you can call your own.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I mean, like you said, that's what we're working on in 2019, is creating our own products, because that's, we see the success of our clients, those who have a great team, those who have great financial backing, those who have good business acumen. They do very well with their product. And many, like you said, many of them already have service businesses, or they've had service businesses for years and have decided this year or last year or years before that, okay, now we want to have a product. And you see their revenue streams for their product side skyrocket and even surpass their service side. So it's really important. And a lot of times people don't see the opportunity at hand when they have a service business, that having a product side of their business can be a very big advancement to their company, their bottom line.
Absolutely. Even if the only thing you do is private label something.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Even that, I have a client who, in particular, we're developing a fintech application for her right now. And so in so doing, while we're creating the fintech app for her, she had been doing a manual process with banks. And then she's like, wait a minute. This is a product that I can also create. So that product, we actually did that one within a month, because it was a very quick product. But now she's white labeled that. She's white labeled that product now, and now it's offering that same product to other small lenders. So, so she went from a very small service company to now having two products, one that's white labeled and one that will be implemented throughout not just the United States, but around the world. So it's just, and it just opens up a whole new world for you. And that's the thing too, when people are doing service businesses, they have all of that information, all that knowledge about their service, that they can then add value in any type of product, any type of digital asset product for their company. And have a huge impact in that industry. So I think those are opportunities, a lot of opportunities that most and some entrepreneurs should really miss out on. And it's really unfortunate, but they really should think about those opportunities if they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions I always ask people when I would start working with them is, what differentiates you from your competition? And having a product, any product at all, even, like I said, it might be an ebook, it might be a mobile app, whatever it is. Yeah. So it may just be a digital product, but anything at all, if you can say, I'm different because of this.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Exactly. I mean, even like you said, that alone makes you stand out. I mean, if let's say you're in a banking space or lending space, like my fintech clients, and that's all you're doing is service-based products, but you're utilizing 2-3 different applications to it, but you're not excited about it. You're like, we like it, but it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. We wish it did this. Well, guess what? That's a new product that you just created. The fact that it doesn't do all that you want it to do, that shows you that that's a new product that needs to be created, because you're not the only person with those complaints. You're not the only person. So even if you have a service-based business, but yet you're using technology to run or manage your business, and some of those elements of that technologies that you're using are missing key elements that you wish that it had, well, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for a product that you can then create. That's a plug that you're not the only one that's having those problems with, that can allow you then to create a product of your own to now be a competitor to those very software applications that you've been using.
Yep. And yeah, it's absolutely true. Even if you're a service-based business, I don't care if the only thing you do is cut grass. The fact is you could come up with a digital product that would make you stand out amongst all the other grass cutters.
Well, even if you're a stay-at-home mom, or a babysitter, there's tons of babysitting apps and things like that out right now. They're not all doing, logging time or managing the babysitting process of, making sure that babysitters there on time and they get paid and all. All of them aren't doing that in an efficient way. Right. So you can have a way to create the same type of product but that adds elements that make sense to you. Right. And so guess what? You're not the only brain in the world that thinks that this app doesn't make a lot of sense. Chances are somebody else thinks the same way that you do, that this is just not quite the way I would have done this in terms of user flow, or user experience. So tons of opportunities. Like I said, babysitting, lawn mowing services, you name it. The opportunities are really endless.
Absolutely. Fascinating information here today. I have totally enjoyed our talk here, Carnellia.
Oh, so have I, Greg. This has been wonderful. I'd like to come back. Let me know when you want me to come back.
All righty. Go ahead and tell our listeners for now how they can stay in touch with you.
Sure. So
about their ideas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That'll be great. We're at LinkedIn. We're at the Mind Catalyst. We're in Twitter, Instagram, all at Mind Catalyst. That's MINDKATALYST, Mind Catalyst. We'll be very happy to talk to you about your product. First, we'll have you sign an NDA so we can protect your idea, and then we'll get started on ideating around what's the best opportunity for you. You can also sign up for my newsletter and also my blog. I post a lot of information from software development process to bootstrapping to VC funding. We kind of run the gamut of how do you go from idea to market throughout our blog. And I also have a video series that you can get access to if you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. And it's a 5 series, and it takes you through the whole idea process as well. You'll get that in your email every day over a 5-day period.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that we have the link to Mind Catalyst on the show notes for those that are just listening or just watching here on the video. Remember, that's Catalyst with a K.
Yes. Thank you so much, Greg.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care, Red. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of 20 Minutes of Influence. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are interested in booking myself as a speaker at one of your events or are interested in any of my coaching programs, please visit gregjameson.com.